days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.
Let me read these. So Luke Campbell, Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell, Doodoo Brown. He said if Joe Biden did this, he would win in a landslide. So he gives 10 points because he's brilliant. He's a political scientist. He reads a lot, knows so much. This is what he said. Number one, if Joe Biden did this, he should end homelessness in America. If he ended homelessness in America, he would win in a landslide. Number two, give African Americans reparations. Who's against that? Of course, yes, we all want reparations. Number three, rebuild all public schools and increase teacher pay by 100%. I'm actually behind this. I would love for this to happen. Number four, increase minimum wage. Number five, lower taxes by 30%. Of course. Number six, cut gas prices by 50%. This is Luke Campbell's solution for getting Biden to win in a landslide. Number seven, close the border. Number eight, free health care for everyone. Didn't Obama try to do that? Anyway, free health care for everyone making under $100,000. I'm for that. Number nine, create a government to bank and to bond African Americans. Not quite sure what you mean by that. That needs a little bit more exploration and explanation. Number 10, executive order eliminating qualified immunity. I would love publicly for Luther Campbell to define that. I think he just pulled. Yeah. I would love for him to define that cogently. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what Elie Mystal, who is a Harvard-trained lawyer, who is a pundit and a writer, allowed me to retort. He's working on another book that's coming out soon. He responded point by point to Luther Campbell's 10-point plan to get Biden to win in a landslide. Before we went to break, I read a tweet from Luther Campbell. Somebody in Nubia wanted to know, why are we talking about Luther Campbell? Because we're not talking about Luther Campbell. We're talking about your cousin and all of the people out there who are ill-informed, who think that they have a solution for how we can get to where we need to be, and everybody who's wagging their finger at the Biden administration, but yet have done very little actual study, even though they did their own research. For him to publicly put this out, as Rachel Bidikoffer pointed out, most people never fact check. They don't actually go see the correction. They lean into the misinformation. And among the 10 points is a lot of ignorance. That's why we're talking about it, because you, your cousins, and a lot of other people in this country are ill-informed, and at least I want to arm you with the weapons to, when people say, well, Biden would just give us reparations, well, here's why that's a dumb argument. So we should have this conversation. Don Calloway is here, 866-801-TALK is the number. So Elie Mystal, friend of the show, of course, Harvard-trained lawyer, pundit, writer extraordinaire. Number one of Luke Campbell is in homelessness. He said, how? Literally no society has ended homelessness. So what's your plan? Like, it's one thing to ask a politician to do something. It's yet another thing to think that they have a magic wand. Every major city in this country of ours is dealing with unhoused folk. We were talking with even Ross Baraka about that. It is a national, to me, tragedy that we care so little about human beings, that we're okay with them living outside and not providing them with the service that they need. But that's I think a people issue. Like, we don't really care. Just like we don't care about children once they're outside of the womb. But I digress. So the number one, yes, in homelessness, we all would like to see that. Elie wants to know how. Number two, he says, give African Americans reparations. Elie said this requires an act of Congress. Then the Supreme Court will veto such an act, like the Supreme Court did when Biden tried to summarily give everybody, student loan debt relief. The Supreme Court said no, so he had to figure out how to do it incrementally, in different kind of backdoor ways, which he's done. And if you've had your student loan debt forgiven, please go on Twitter and thank Joe Biden. Number three, not the Supreme Court, not Trump. Number three, he says rebuild all public schools, increase teacher pay by 100%. Elie Mystal points out public school funding is controlled by the states. Republicans want to keep it that way. Rachel Bittercoffer just laid out states' rights is what they want to go back to, because the states' rights under that rubric, they got to own us, black people. They like that states' rights. So they want to keep that in. So that's not going to change under Trump. Number 4, and Biden can't change it with the stroke of a pen, because most schools is governed locally by the mayor, the school board, depending on the particular city or state. Number 4, he says increase minimum wage. Well, that has happened, but that's also an act of Congress. Act of Congress. Number 5, lower taxes. Act of Congress. That legislative branch is the one that makes that happen, not the president. Number 6, cut gas prices. Ellie says the president does not control the gas prices. Talk to your oil companies, right? Number 7, close the border. Ellie says to everybody or just brown people. Because the people who say close the border usually are the only ones talking, the only ones they're talking about are brown people.
Because yes, we are not talking about the northern border.
Right. Canadian, yeah. Swedish. You can come here if you got the complexion for the connection. Number 8, free health care for everyone making under $100,000. He says that's an act of Congress. Then the Supreme Court will say no. He's right. Obama tried to get it with the all the compromises. Obamacare. Everybody loved the Affordable Care Act, but they hated Obamacare. It was the same thing. This is how rooted in politics and race, just health care. Because if there's a notion that somehow somebody who's black or brown is getting health care, then they don't want it for anybody. How many states, Don, got actually Obamacare money and didn't release it?
There were a lot. There were a lot, including, even before stimulus money. I remember being in the Missouri legislature and receiving $4 billion in stimulus funds in 2010. And I remember several weeks of grandstanding about how we're going to send this back. We're going to send it back to the feds, and the speaker's going to deliver it in a white ribbon to the White House on Clydesdales. And then we went through, smart people elected by, the people to solve problems. And we went through how to deliver this check ceremonially from the people of Missouri back to the White House. And then there were iterations about how to find some type of scheme to break it up per taxpayer and return $500, $600, $700. Meanwhile, our bridges are crumbling. Our teachers need raises. Our firefighters need raises. Our police officers need raises. And that's ultimately what happened. But the Republicans didn't publicize that they had done these things, but they went back on their own little individual legislative races and say, I got you teachers that raise. I got you fired. No, Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and the stimulus Democrats got you this raise, got you these. And let's be clear about something. The stimulus was the Obama administration's legislative response to a global fiscal crisis in which everybody's finances, wallets, corporations, and individuals were turned upside down. It wasn't no other way to get money. So in a universe where we recognize that the middle class is still largely employed by and created by government jobs and jobs created by vendors who serve governments, that's across the civil service agencies as well as federal, state, and local employees. You had to find a way to get more money in those people's pockets. And the way we did it was through raises. If Missouri got $4 billion, I know what Illinois got. I know what Arkansas got. And the deepest of red states were saved. We were saved from 1930s catastrophic depression by black ass Barack Obama. So I have criticisms of Barack Obama professionally, but I also saw Barack Obama and Joe Biden rescue an economy. And I saw the duplicative nature of Republicans try to reject it when it saved their own people in their own districts' actual wallets. Not to mention stimulus and infrastructure modernization, with some of that, and we're just now seeing is coming to fruition. The last thing I'll say about all of this, because I'm old enough to have seen some parts of this, is let's end on a hopeful note since it's Monday.
Well, right? I'm not finished. I got number 10. So there's that. Number 10, executive order eliminating qualified immunity. Elie Mystal said, yes, he could do this. He could try to do this. Then the Supreme Court would say no. But that doesn't mean, Elie, and this is where I disagree, that he doesn't try. Because I do believe qualified immunity, by the way, is the protection of law enforcement officers, giving them, broad rights to violate your rights. It is the thing that makes it very difficult to sue when there's police brutality and other things that happen, which is why so many police officers don't even get charged when they've been, seen to have done this. And in states like Arizona, getting back to states' rights, they are making it illegal to film police officers. Was it Louisiana that recently said you have to stand 25 feet from a police officer in their duty, which means it's virtually impossible? That George Floyd thing?
Yes.
Couldn't have happened in Louisiana.
To be clear, this is a direct response to citizen exposure of police abuses. Where you ended up on number 10 is kind of where I end up on all of these. And I love Elie Mystal. I'm a big Elie Mystal fan. But I'll say it's easy for the me's and the you's and the Elie Mystals to say, well, the president can't do this, or that's not in his jurisdiction, or the Supreme Court would do this, and you need Congress. Yes, all of that's true. But our job is to listen to what people like Uncle Luke, who is not a dumb man and is extraordinarily qualified to talk about how to create growth and wealth in business. I mean, our job is to say, all right, well, what should we take a swing at? Out of all of this stuff, where should we try to get started? Because the difference between our democratic politics and the politics on the right or alt-right or whatever else is, they don't care about issues of jurisdiction. They don't care about issues of propriety. They say, this is the outcome we want, and we're going to try to ram it through. We're going to try to make this outcome come to fruition, and we're willing to fight. And I get it. That's not how government's supposed to work. But people who are wanting to vote for the left and who would want to align with the ideological left, they want to try to see some fight. And they don't want to hear about arcane process being obstruction to this, because the other side is trying to get their shit done. They're trying to execute on their agenda regardless of process. And we have played a proper game as Democrats. We believe in good governance, but people want to see folks trying to fight for them, for some of these things, in the way that Republicans fight for and ultimately ramrod their agenda through from a policy perspective.
Facts.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.